A Japanese mother screamed, "Don't touch my baby!" Every black soldier stepped back. One cry, one moment, and suddenly a good man became the enemy. Propaganda had poisoned her mind. She believed black Americans were monsters, and now the white officers believed it too. A sergeant humiliated, a dying infant refused medicine, and a choice that could destroy them both. But when that baby's fever burned through the night, when the medics turned their backs, one soldier risked everything. He stole to save a life. She defended him when no one else would. Two enemies, two nations drowning in lies. When the storm breaks and the truth is screamed into the rain, will dignity survive prejudice? Or will the cost of humanity be more than either of them can bear? The afternoon heat pressed down on the Okinawa processing camp. Staff Sergeant Isaiah Coleman walked slowly behind the line of Japanese civilians. His boots scraped against the coral dust. The woman ahead clutched her baby close to her chest. Her shoulders trembled. "Keep moving," a white MP called from the left. "Medic tents are just ahead." Zeke watched the civilians shuffle forward. Their clothes hung in tatters. Mud caked their bare feet. Some looked too weak to stand. One old man leaned heavily on a younger woman's shoulder. The young mother stopped suddenly. She turned and saw Zeke 3 paces behind her. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth opened. "Don't touch my baby!" The scream cut through the humid air. Every soldier froze. The woman backed away from Zeke. Her infant wailed against her shoulder. She screamed again in Japanese. Other civilians scattered to the sides. "What did you do?" A white MP rushed forward. "What did you do to her?" "Nothing, sir." Zeke raised both hands. "I didn't touch anyone." "You must have scared her." Lieutenant Briggs appeared from between 2 tents. His face flushed red beneath his cap. "Step back, Coleman." "Sir, I said step back." Zeke took 3 steps backward. The other black soldiers in his platoon watched in silence. None of them moved. Lieutenant Briggs walked past Zeke without looking at him. He gestured to 2 white MPs. "Get the colored boys away from the civilians." Briggs pointed toward the supply area. "They're making things worse." The words stung deeper than any shrapnel wound. Zeke had fought through 3 campaigns. He had carried wounded men under fire. He had never raised his hand to a prisoner or civilian. Now he stood accused of frightening a terrified mother. "You heard the lieutenant." One of the MPs waved his rifle toward the east. "Move out." Zeke's platoon turned and walked away. Lewis muttered something under his breath. Turner shook his head slowly. Nobody spoke loud enough for the white soldiers to hear. Behind them, the young mother still sobbed. The baby's cries faded as distance grew. Zeke glanced back once. She knelt in the dirt now. 2 white medics stood over her. One of them pointed at Zeke's retreating platoon and said something that made the other medic laugh. The loudspeaker crackled to life. A voice announced blackout procedures for sunset. Rain would come soon. The air smelled heavy with it. Zeke walked toward his tent. The scream echoed in his mind. The segregated barracks tent sagged in the middle. Zeke sat on his cot and unlaced his boots. His feet ached. Canvas walls flapped softly in the evening breeze. Outside, distant voices called orders across the camp. Lewis sat down across from him. "That wasn't your fault." "Doesn't matter." Zeke pulled off one boot. "They'll make it my fault anyway." Turner entered the tent and dropped his pack near the entrance. He looked at Zeke and frowned. "Briggs already told the captain we spooked the civilians." "We didn't do anything." Lewis leaned forward. "We were just standing there." "You think that matters?" Turner reached into his pocket. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Look what I found in one of the caves." He spread the paper on the cot between them. Zeke leaned closer. The propaganda leaflet showed a drawing of a black soldier. The face was twisted into something inhuman. Fangs dripped blood. Claws reached toward a cowering woman and child. Japanese command told them we're monsters. Turner tapped the image. They've been feeding this to civilians for months, maybe years. Zeke stared at the drawing. He recognized the uniform. He recognized the insignia. The artist had drawn his face as a demon. So she screamed because of this. Lewis picked up the leaflet. Because they told her we'd hurt her baby. That's right. Turner folded it carefully and put it back in his pocket. And now Briggs gets to use her fear against us. Thunder rumbled far away. The first drops of rain began tapping the tent roof. Zeke lay back on his cot. He closed his eyes. The woman's scream played over and over in his mind. Get some sleep, Lewis said quietly. Tomorrow won't be any easier. Tomorrow never is. The rain grew heavier. Water dripped through a tear in the canvas near the entrance. Turner moved his pack away from the growing puddle. Somewhere outside, an MP shouted at someone to close a tent flap properly. Zeke heard footsteps approach the tent. They stopped just outside. He opened his eyes and sat up. A whisper came through the canvas. Please, I need help. Lewis and Turner looked at each other. Zeke stood slowly. He walked to the tent flap and pulled it back slightly. The young Japanese mother stood in the rain. Her baby slept against her shoulder. She bowed deeply. Tears mixed with rainwater on her face. Zeke stepped outside. Rain soaked through his shirt in seconds. The woman took 2 steps back. Her eyes showed fear and something else. Desperation, maybe. Please, she whispered. I am sorry, very sorry. Her English came slowly. Each word seemed carefully chosen. Zeke glanced left and right. No MPs in sight. The rain provided cover. Voices from other tents sounded distant and muffled. You need to go back. Zeke kept his voice low. If they see you here. My baby. She pulled back the cloth covering the infant's face. Sick, very sick. Medicine man say no, say enemy baby. The child's skin looked pale even in the dim light. Its breathing came rapid and shallow. Zeke had seen fever before. This baby needed help soon. The white medic refused you? She nodded. Say no medicine for enemy. Baby get worse. I remember you. You kind face. You help? They'll court-martial me if I steal medical supplies. Please. She bowed again. The baby stirred and whimpered. You only one who might help. Zeke looked back at the tent. Lewis and Turner watched through the gap. Neither of them spoke. They would follow whatever choice he made. They always had. Come with me. Zeke motioned toward the shadows between tents. Stay quiet. Stay close. They moved through the rain-soaked camp. Mud sucked at their feet. The woman followed 3 paces behind. Her sandals made soft, slapping sounds. Zeke led her past the mess tent and around the latrine area. The medical supplies were stored in a small tent behind the main aid station. 2 white soldiers stood guard near the front entrance. Zeke and the woman crouched behind supply crates. Rain pounded the canvas roofs. Lightning flashed in the distance. Wait here, Zeke whispered. He circled wide around the medical tent. The backside faced away from the main camp. A gap in the canvas near the ground gave access to the interior. Zeke had noticed it 3 days ago while helping unload supplies. He crawled through the gap. Inside, rows of wooden crates lined both walls. Medical equipment filled metal shelves. Zeke found the sulfa powder quickly. He took 1 small vial and slipped it into his pocket. The canvas rustled behind him. He turned. The woman squeezed through the gap. She held her baby with 1 arm. I told you to wait. Baby need medicine now. Zeke pulled the vial from his pocket. He opened it carefully. The powder inside looked pure white. Standard issue sulfa for infections and fever. He had seen medics use it dozens of times. Hold your baby still. The woman adjusted the infant in her arms. Zeke mixed a small amount of powder with water from his canteen. He showed her how to apply it to the baby's mouth. The child coughed once and swallowed. Do this 3 times each day, Zeke demonstrated with his fingers. Morning, afternoon, night, understand? Yes, 3 times. She nodded quickly. Thank you. Thank you very much. Keep the baby warm but not hot. Use water to cool the fever. He mimed wiping a damp cloth across a forehead. Like this. She watched carefully. Her fear had not disappeared completely. She still flinched when his hand moved too quickly. But gratitude showed in her eyes now. Something stronger than the propaganda had taught her. Artillery rumbled somewhere to the north. The sound echoed across the hills. Rain hammered harder against the tent. Voices approached from the front entrance. You need to leave now. Zeke pointed towards the gap. Go quickly. My name Aiko. She bowed slightly. Your name? Zeke. Thank you, Zeke. She backed toward the gap in the canvas. I not forget. She slipped through and disappeared into the rain. Zeke waited 30 seconds. He listened to the voices near the front of the tent. 2 medics discussed inventory. One complained about missing bandages. Zeke crawled through the gap and emerged into the storm. Mud caked his uniform. He stood and moved quickly between the shadows. Thunder covered the sound of his footsteps. He reached his tent without being seen. Lewis and Turner looked up as he entered. Neither asked questions. Zeke sat on his cot and pulled off his boots again. Rain dripped from his sleeves. Outside, the storm continued. Zeke lay back and closed his eyes. He saw the empty vial in his mind. It still sat in the dirt behind the medical tent. By morning, someone would notice it missing. Dawn came gray and wet. Zeke woke to the sound of boots splashing through puddles outside. The camp stirred to life slowly. Men grumbled about cold rations and damp clothes. Smoke rose from the mess tent's chimney pipe. Zeke dressed quickly. His uniform still felt damp from last night. He stepped outside and joined the line for morning assignments. Lewis and Turner stood behind him. Nobody mentioned Aiko or the medicine. Lieutenant Briggs appeared near the command tent. He spoke with 2 white MPs. One of them pointed toward the medical area. Briggs nodded and walked in that direction. That doesn't look good, Turner muttered. The line moved forward. A sergeant called out names and assigned work details. Zeke received orders to help unload supply trucks near the motor pool. Standard duty, nothing unusual. He walked toward the trucks. Other black soldiers were already there. They worked in silence under the watch of a white corporal. Crates of ammunition needed moving. Fuel drums required stacking. An hour passed. The sun broke through the clouds. Steam rose from wet canvas tents. Zeke lifted another crate. His arms burned with effort. Coleman, a voice barked from behind him. Drop that and come here. Zeke set down the crate. He turned to see the white medic from yesterday. The man's face looked flushed and angry. Lieutenant Briggs stood beside him. Yes, sir? Someone stole medical supplies last night. The medic stepped closer. A vial of sulfa powder went missing. I don't know anything about that, sir. Really? Briggs crossed his arms. Because you were seen near the medical tent after dark. I was in my barracks, sir. Corporal Henshaw says he saw a colored soldier moving between the tents during the storm. Briggs pulled out a small notebook. Around 2,300 hours. Zeke kept his face neutral. He had been careful, but the rain and darkness could not hide everything. Someone had been watching. "I went to the latrine, sir. That's all." "The latrine is east of the barracks." The medic pointed west. "The medical tent is west." Maybe Corporal Henshaw was mistaken about the direction. Briggs stepped forward, his jaw clenched. "Are you calling one of my men a liar?" "No, sir. I'm saying it was dark and raining." "Listen carefully, Coleman." Briggs lowered his voice. "You're already under scrutiny for frightening those civilians yesterday. Now medical supplies go missing. This doesn't look good for you." The other black soldiers had stopped working. They watched from a distance. The white corporal told them to get back to loading crates. "I didn't take anything, sir." "Then you won't mind if we search your tent." The sun climbed higher. Heat returned to the air. Steam rose from puddles. Zeke walked toward the civilian tent area. Lieutenant Briggs had dismissed him after finding nothing in his barracks. The empty vial remained hidden behind the medical tent. Nobody had found it yet. Zeke carried a crate of rations for the civilians. Official duty. Nothing suspicious. 2 white MPs watched from a distance but did not stop him. Aiko sat outside her tent. The baby rested in her arms. She looked up as Zeke approached. Her eyes widened. She started to stand. "Stay seated," Zeke said quietly. He set down the crate. "How is your baby?" "Better." She smiled slightly. "Fever less this morning." Zeke knelt and pretended to check the crate's contents. From this angle, the MPs could not see his face clearly. He spoke without looking at Aiko directly. "They know medicine is missing. Be very careful." "I am careful." Her voice trembled. "I am sorry for trouble." "It's not your fault." The baby made a soft, cooing sound. Aiko adjusted the cloth around its head. She began humming quietly. The melody was simple and gentle. It reminded Zeke of songs his own mother used to sing. "That's pretty," he said. "My mother teach me?" Aiko's English came easier now. "She sang this when I was baby. My mother had a song too." Zeke hummed a few bars. "Different words, same feeling." Aiko listened. She nodded slowly. "Yes, same feeling. Mother love." For a brief moment the war faded. 2 people shared something universal. No propaganda could poison this. No uniform could divide it. An elderly Japanese man approached from a nearby tent. He spoke sharply to Aiko in their language. She bowed her head and stopped humming. The old man looked at Zeke with suspicion. He took Aiko's arm and helped her stand. "I must go," she whispered. Zeke stood and picked up the empty crate. He nodded once and walked away. Behind him he heard the old man speaking urgently to Aiko. The word American repeated several times. Zeke returned to the supply area. Other black soldiers worked in the morning heat. Lewis caught his eye and raised an eyebrow. Zeke shook his head slightly. "Not now. Not here." Thunder rumbled again. More rain would come soon. The sky darkened in the west. A jeep pulled up near the command tent. Captain Harwood stepped out. He spoke with Lieutenant Briggs. Both men looked toward the work detail. Briggs pointed at Zeke. Turner appeared beside Zeke. "That's not good." "No," Zeke agreed. "It's not." The mess line stretched long and slow. Noon heat pressed down on everyone. Zeke held his tin plate and waited his turn. Beans and hardtack again. The same meal they had eaten for 3 days straight. Voices carried from the front of the line. 2 white soldiers talked loudly. One of them laughed. The sound had an edge to it. "Did you hear about the colored sergeant?" The first soldier spooned beans onto his plate. "Caught sneaking around a Japanese woman?" "No surprise there." The second soldier grinned. "They'll take anything they can get." Lewis stiffened beside Zeke. His jaw clenched. Turner put a hand on Lewis's shoulder and shook his head slowly. Starting a fight would only make things worse. The line moved forward. Zeke reached the serving table. A white cook slapped beans onto his plate without meeting his eyes. Another cook added a piece of hardtack. "Maybe she's trading favors for medicine," the first soldier continued. He stood 3 paces away now, close enough to be heard clearly. "You know how these enemy women are." "Probably enjoying it too." The second soldier laughed again. "Coleman always did have a way with the enemy." Lewis took a step toward them. Zeke grabbed his arm. "Don't," Zeke said quietly. "That's what they want." "I'm not going to let them—" "Yes, you are." Zeke kept his voice level. "Because fighting back gets us thrown in the stockade. It gives them exactly what they need." Turner nodded. "He's right. We play this smart." The 2 white soldiers walked away, still laughing. Other soldiers in the mess area had heard everything. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked away. Nobody spoke up in defense. Zeke found a spot under a tree. He sat on the ground and ate mechanically. The beans tasted like metal. Lewis and Turner sat on either side of him. Around them, other black soldiers gathered. They formed a loose circle, protection in numbers. "This is getting worse," Lewis said. "First the woman screams. Now they're saying you're fraternizing. Briggs is building a case." Turner kept his voice low. "He's looking for any excuse to make an example. I didn't do anything wrong." "Doesn't matter." Lewis stabbed his hardtack with his fork. "You know it doesn't matter." A messenger appeared at the edge of the mess area. A young private. He looked around until he spotted Zeke. He walked over quickly. "Staff Sergeant Coleman?" "Yes." "You're ordered to report to Lieutenant Briggs immediately." Zeke set down his plate. He had barely eaten half his meal. He stood and brushed dirt from his uniform. Lewis and Turner started to rise with him. "Alone," the messenger added. "Just Coleman." The command tent trapped heat. Inside. Sweat ran down Zeke's back. Lieutenant Briggs stood behind a folding table covered with papers. Captain Harwood sat in a canvas chair to the left. Both men looked at Zeke with flat expressions. "At ease, Coleman." Harwood gestured vaguely. "This won't take long." Zeke stood with his hands behind his back. He kept his eyes forward. "Standard military bearing. Show no weakness. Give them nothing to use." "We've received multiple reports." Briggs shuffled papers on the table. "You were seen near the Japanese woman again this morning." "I was delivering rations, sir. Official duty." "And you spoke with her?" "She asked about her baby's health. I gave a brief answer. Nothing improper." Briggs leaned forward. "Several witnesses heard you humming. They say the woman hummed back. Is that true?" "Yes, sir." "Why would you do that?" "She was humming a song. I recognized the melody. I hummed along for a moment, that's all." "That's all?" Briggs's voice rose. "You're fraternizing with enemy civilians while under investigation for theft." "I'm not fraternizing. I'm doing my assigned duties." Captain Harwood raised one hand. Briggs fell silent. Harwood stood slowly. He walked around the table and stopped 1 pace from Zeke. His face showed fatigue more than anger. "Coleman, you're a good soldier. 3 campaigns. No disciplinary issues before this week." Harwood paused. "But something has changed. Either you stole that medicine or you're protecting someone who did." "I didn't steal anything, sir." "Then explain why Corporal Henshaw saw a colored soldier near the medical tent. Explain why that same night medicine went missing. Explain why you keep finding reasons to talk to a Japanese civilian who screamed in terror at the sight of you." "I can't explain what Henshaw saw. Maybe he saw someone else. Maybe he was mistaken." Zeke chose his words carefully. "As for the woman, I'm trying to undo the damage from that first encounter. Show her we're not monsters. Isn't that what we're supposed to do?" Briggs snorted. "You're not a diplomat. You're a supply sergeant. I'm reassigning you temporarily." Harwood returned to his chair. You'll be confined to the work detail area. No contact with civilians. No unsupervised movement around camp. This stays in effect until we resolve the missing medicine issue. Yes, sir. Consider this a warning. Harwood picked up a pen. One more incident, and I'll have no choice but to pursue formal charges. Understood? Yes, sir. Dismissed. Zeke saluted. He turned and walked out of the tent. The sun seemed brighter after the dimness inside. Heat pressed down on everything. Thunder rumbled far away. Another storm was building. Rain would return before nightfall. He walked toward the work detail area. Other black soldiers watched him approach. They read the news in his posture. Confined, under watch, one step away from court-martial. In the distance, Zeke saw the civilian tents. He could not see Aiko from here. But he knew she was there. He knew her baby was recovering because of medicine he had stolen. The sky darkened in the west. Lightning flickered inside the clouds. Zeke picked up a crate and began working. His hands moved automatically. His mind raced ahead to what would come next. Dusk brought shadows across the confinement area. Zeke sat on the ground behind a rope barrier. The rope stretched between 4 wooden posts. Beyond it, the rest of the camp continued its evening routine. Men walked to the mess tent. Trucks rumbled past on patrol. MP Jenkins stood guard 10 paces away. He leaned against a supply crate and smoked a cigarette. The orange glow brightened each time he inhaled. He looked bored, more than hostile. You got yourself in a real mess, Coleman. Jenkins flicked ash into the dirt. Officers are itching to make an example. I didn't do anything wrong. Doesn't matter what you did. Jenkins took another drag. Matters what they think you did. Thunder rolled across the hills. The storm moved closer. Wind picked up and carried dust through the camp. Canvas tents flapped loudly. Men hurried to secure loose equipment. Zeke leaned back against a post. His body ached from a full day of loading crates. His mind ached worse. 3 years of service. 3 campaigns survived. All of it meant nothing now because he had shown kindness to a frightened mother. How long do I stay here? Until Captain Harwood decides otherwise. Jenkins dropped his cigarette and crushed it under his boot. Could be days, could be weeks. Depends on whether they find that missing medicine. They won't find it on me. Didn't say they would. Jenkins looked at Zeke for a long moment. But they'll find something. They always do when they want someone gone. Lightning flashed. Thunder followed seconds later. The storm was close now. Rain began to fall. Light drops at first, then heavier. Jenkins pulled his poncho over his head. Better get under cover, Jenkins said. This one's going to be bad. Where am I supposed to go? Your problem, not mine. Jenkins walked toward a nearby tent. He looked back once. But there's a tarp hanging off that supply shed. Might keep you dry? Zeke stood and walked to the shed. The tarp provided minimal shelter. Rain drummed against canvas and metal. Water pooled in low spots across the camp. Somewhere a door banged repeatedly in the wind. Through the rain, Zeke saw lights in the civilian tent area. Shadows moved behind canvas walls. He wondered if Aiko was safe. He wondered if her baby's fever had stayed down. The rain intensified. Jenkins disappeared inside a guard tent. Zeke pulled the tarp tighter around his shoulders. Water dripped from the edge onto his boots. This was only the beginning. Briggs would push harder tomorrow. The accusations would grow. Eventually, something would break. Zeke just hoped it would not be him. Rain hammered the civilian tents. Water leaked through tears in the canvas. Aiko sat with her baby wrapped in the driest cloth she could find. Around her, other civilians huddled together. The old man who had scolded her earlier sat near the entrance. He watched the storm with worried eyes. A young woman named Yuki moved closer to Aiko. She spoke in Japanese. Her voice barely carried over the rain. They are saying the black soldier is confined because of you. Aiko's stomach twisted. What do you mean? The American officers think he stole medicine for you. Yuki glanced toward the entrance. The white medic told everyone this morning. He said the soldier will be punished. But he only helped my baby. Aiko looked down at the sleeping infant. My baby would have died. The Americans do not care about that. Yuki pulled her knees to her chest. We are the enemy. They want us to suffer. Not all of them. Aiko thought of Zeke's gentle hands mixing the medicine. Some of them are different. Different or not, he is in trouble because of you. Yuki's voice hardened. You should not have asked him for help. The old man turned to face them. He spoke sharply in Japanese. The black one cannot be trusted. None of them can. They are conquerors. They want only to humiliate us. He saved my baby's life, Aiko said quietly, and now he will pay for it. The old man pointed towards the camp. That is what happens when you trust the enemy. Everyone suffers. Thunder shook the ground. Lightning lit the tent interior. Aiko saw fear on every face around her. They were prisoners now. Their emperor had sent them to fight and die. Now they lived in tents waiting for someone to decide their fate. A white medic appeared at the tent entrance. Rain soaked his uniform. He held a clipboard under his poncho. Any more sick children? He spoke in broken Japanese. Need to know now. Nobody answered. The medic looked around the tent. His eyes stopped on Aiko. Your baby better? Yes, Aiko said. Better now. Good. The medic's expression stayed cold. No more medicine for you, understand? You go to that colored soldier again and you both go to a worse camp. He left before Aiko could respond. The tent flap swung in the wind. Rain blew inside. The old man moved to secure it. Yuki touched Aiko's arm. You see? They watch you now. You cannot help the soldier even if you want to. I have to try. Aiko stood slowly. Her baby stirred but did not wake. He is suffering because of me. Where are you going? Yuki grabbed her sleeve. You will only make things worse. Aiko pulled free. She wrapped her baby tightly and moved toward the entrance. The old man blocked her path. You will stay here, he said firmly. No. Aiko stepped around him. I will not. She pushed through the tent flap. Rain soaked her instantly. Rain turned the camp into a maze of shadows. Aiko moved between tents. Her sandals sank into mud. The baby whimpered against her chest. She whispered softly to calm the infant. Lightning flashed. She saw the confinement area ahead. A rope stretched between posts. Beyond it stood a supply shed. A tarp hung from one side. Zeke sat beneath it. Aiko walked forward. Her heart pounded. MP Jenkins emerged from a tent. He saw her and raised his hand. Stop right there. Civilians aren't allowed in this area. Please. Aiko bowed slightly. I must speak to soldier. No, you must not. Jenkins walked toward her. You need to return to your tent right now. Please, just one moment. Zeke stood under the tarp. He saw Aiko and moved toward the rope barrier. Jenkins stepped between them. Coleman, tell her to leave. Aiko, you need to go back. Zeke kept his voice gentle. It's not safe for you here. I am sorry. Aiko's English broke apart. You in trouble because of me. I must tell them truth. The truth doesn't matter to them. Zeke gripped the rope. They've already decided what they want to believe. But my baby lived because of you. And I'm glad for that. Zeke glanced at Jenkins. But if you stay here, they'll use it against both of us. Jenkins moved closer to Aiko. His expression had softened slightly. He looked uncomfortable now. Rain dripped from his helmet. "Look, I don't want to drag you back to your tent, but I will if you don't go on your own." "You're a good man?" Aiko looked at Jenkins. "You help him?" "I'm just following orders." Lightning cracked directly overhead. Thunder followed instantly. The baby began to cry. Aiko rocked back and forth. She looked at Zeke one more time. "I tell them truth tomorrow. I tell officers you save baby. They won't listen." Zeke's voice carried desperation now. "Please, Aiko, just go back. Keep yourself and your baby safe." "You keep us safe first." Tears mixed with rain on her face. "Now I must try." Jenkins took her arm gently. "Come on, I'll walk you back." Aiko let him guide her away. She looked over her shoulder twice. Zeke watched until darkness swallowed them. Then he sat back down under the tarp. The rain grew heavier. Wind howled through the camp. Zeke pulled his knees to his chest. His clothes were soaked through. His body shivered, but the cold outside felt distant compared to the dread inside. Aiko would try to defend him. The officers would dismiss her testimony, and both of them would end up in worse situations than before. Thunder rolled continuously now. The storm had fully arrived. Aiko returned to the civilian tent. Her clothes dripped water onto the ground. The baby cried louder now. Fever had returned. She felt it in the infant's skin, hot and dry despite the rain. Yuki rushed forward. "Your baby needs medicine again." "I know." Aiko rocked the infant desperately. "I must go to medic tent." "They will not help you." The old man spoke from his corner. "You already tried once." "I must try again." Aiko moved toward the entrance. "My baby is dying." She ran through the rain. Mud splashed her legs. Lightning showed her the way. The medic tent stood near the center of camp. White canvas glowed from lanterns inside. Aiko burst through the entrance. Two medics looked up from their work. One was organizing supplies. The other read a medical journal. Both men frowned when they saw her. "Please." Aiko held out her baby. "Fever come back. Need medicine. Please help." The first medic walked over. He looked at the baby briefly. Then he shook his head. "I told you before. No more medicine for enemy civilians." "Baby is dying." Aiko's voice broke. "Please. Should have thought of that before you went crying to that colored soldier." The medic returned to his supplies. "We've got limited resources. They're for our boys, not for enemy babies." "Please." Aiko fell to her knees. The baby's crying weakened. "I beg you." The second medic stood. He walked to Aiko and pulled her to her feet. His grip was firm but not cruel. He guided her toward the exit. "You need to leave now. If you come back here again, I'll report you to the MPs." "My baby." "Your baby is not my responsibility." He pushed her gently outside. "Go back to your tent." The tent flap closed. Aiko stood in the rain. Her baby's cries grew softer. The fever burned hotter. She had no medicine. She had no help. The only person who had shown kindness was now confined and under suspicion. She walked slowly back toward the civilian area. Rain poured down. Thunder shook the earth. She thought about the propaganda leaflets, the drawings of black soldiers as monsters. She had believed those lies once. Now she knew the truth. The monsters wore different uniforms than she had been taught. Yuki met her at the tent entrance. She saw Aiko's face and understood immediately. "They refused again?" "Yes." Aiko sat down with her baby. "They said enemy babies do not deserve medicine." "Then what will you do?" Aiko looked at her infant's face. The child's eyes stayed closed. Breathing came in short gasps. Without medicine, the fever would not break. Without help, Her baby would die before morning. "I do not know," Aiko whispered. Midnight brought no relief. Rain continued to pound the camp. Zeke sat under the tarp. Water leaked through in 3 places. His uniform stuck to his skin. His body shook from cold. MP Jenkins approached through the darkness. He carried a canteen and a piece of tarp. "Here." Jenkins handed both items to Zeke. "Captain doesn't need to know." "Thanks." Jenkins sat down beside him. Rain drummed above their heads. For several minutes, neither man spoke. Jenkins lit a cigarette. He cupped his hand around it to protect the flame. "Briggs is pushing hard for your court-martial." Jenkins exhaled smoke. "He's meeting with the captain at dawn." "What's the charge?" "Theft of military property, fraternization with enemy civilians, disobeying orders." Jenkins counted on his fingers. "He's got a whole list ready." "None of it is true." "Like I said before, doesn't matter." Jenkins took another drag. "Briggs wants you gone. He's been looking for an excuse since you arrived." "Why? You really asking me that?" Jenkins looked at Zeke. "You're a colored sergeant who doesn't bow and scrape. You earned your stripes through combat. That eats at men like Briggs." Thunder crashed overhead. The supply shed's roof rattled. Zeke pulled the extra tarp over his shoulders. The warmth helped, but not much. "What happens if they court-martial me?" "Best case, you lose your stripes and get transferred to labor detail." Jenkins flicked ash into the rain. "Worst case, dishonorable discharge. Maybe time in the stockade." "And the woman? The Japanese one?" Jenkins shrugged. "They'll probably move her to a harsher camp. Make an example of her, too. Show the other civilians what happens when they trust American soldiers." Zeke closed his eyes. He had tried to help a dying baby. That single act of humanity had set everything in motion. Now both he and Aiko would pay the price. "There's something else." Jenkins lowered his voice. "I overheard the captain talking. The war might end soon, real soon. Japan is on the edge." "How soon?" "Days, maybe. Weeks at most." Jenkins dropped his cigarette. "But that doesn't help you. Briggs will push this through before any armistice changes things." Lightning flashed 3 times in rapid succession. Thunder followed like artillery fire. The storm had reached its peak. Wind tore at the tents. Men shouted as canvas ripped loose. Equipment crashed to the ground. A scream cut through the wind, high-pitched, desperate. It came from the civilian area. Jenkins stood quickly. "That's a child." Zeke recognized it immediately. "That's Aiko's baby." "Stay here." Jenkins started toward the sound. "Don't move." But Zeke was already on his feet. The storm tore open part of the civilian tent. Canvas flapped wildly in the wind. Water flooded inside. Japanese civilians scrambled to save their belongings. Children cried. Old people struggled to stand in the rushing water. Aiko knelt in the mud. Her baby screamed. The infant's face was red with fever. Its body shook with convulsions. Yuki tried to help, but did not know what to do. "The baby is dying," Yuki shouted over the wind. "Aiko, you must do something." "I tried," Aiko sobbed. "They will not help us." 2 white MPs appeared with flashlights. They began directing civilians toward higher ground. One of them saw Aiko and the baby. He knelt down briefly. Then he stood and shook his head. "Nothing we can do. The medics won't come out in this storm for an enemy civilian." "Please!" Aiko grabbed his leg. "My baby needs medicine." "I'm sorry." The MP pulled free. "I have orders." Aiko stood with her baby. She looked around wildly. The storm roared. Lightning showed her the path through camp. She knew where Zeke was confined. She knew he was the only one who had ever helped. She ran. Mud grabbed at her feet. She fell once and scraped her knee. The baby's screaming weakened. Aiko got up and kept running. MPs shouted at her to stop. She did not stop. Rain blinded her. She tripped over a rope and nearly dropped her baby. Strong hands caught her. She looked up and saw MP Jenkins. "Where are you going?" "To Zeke," Aiko screamed. "He helped before. He helped now." "He can't help you. He's confined." "He only one who care." Aiko pulled away from Jenkins. "He only one who see us as human." She ran again. Jenkins followed, but did not grab her. Ahead, she saw the confinement area. Zeke stood beyond the rope barrier. He had seen her coming. "Aiko, no!" Zeke shouted. "Go back!" "My baby dying!" She crossed the rope barrier. "You must help, please!" More MPs arrived. Flashlights swept across the scene. Lieutenant Briggs appeared from somewhere. His voice cut through the wind. "What is going on here?" Aiko fell to her knees in front of Zeke. Rain poured down on both of them. Her baby's screams had become weak whimpers. She held the infant up toward the MPs and officers gathering around them. "He saved my baby before. You punish him for kindness. You lie about him." Aiko's voice broke. "You say he is dangerous. You lie, just like they lied about him to me." Thunder drowned out her next words. Lightning illuminated the scene. A dozen soldiers stood watching. Briggs stepped forward. Captain Harwood appeared behind him. "Get her away from Coleman," Briggs ordered. "No!" Aiko clutched her baby tighter. "You listen, he is good man. You are the monsters." A gust of wind knocked down part of the rope barrier fence. Several posts collapsed. Harwood raised his hand. "Everyone take shelter. We'll sort this out when the storm passes." But nobody moved. Wind tore at their uniforms. Rain came in sheets. Aiko knelt in the mud between Zeke and the gathering officers. Her baby had stopped screaming. The silence was worse than the noise. "Please," Aiko whispered. She looked at Captain Harwood. "Baby need medicine. Zeke give medicine before. Baby get better. Now fever come back. White medic say no. He say enemy baby not deserve help." Harwood stepped closer. He looked at the infant in Aiko's arms. Even in the storm, he could see the child's condition. Fever had drained all color from its face. Its breathing came shallow and fast. "Lieutenant Briggs." Harwood kept his eyes on the baby. "Did our medic refuse to treat this child?" Briggs hesitated. "Sir, we have limited medical supplies. They're designated for our troops." "That's not what I asked." "Yes, sir." The medic refused. Harwood turned to Zeke. "Did you steal sulfa powder to treat this baby?" Zeke stood straight. Water dripped from his face. He had two choices: lie and maybe avoid court-martial, or tell the truth and accept the consequences. "Yes, sir, I did." Gasps came from several soldiers. Briggs smiled slightly. Harwood's expression did not change. "Why?" "Because the baby was dying, sir. Because someone had to help. You disobeyed orders. You stole military property." Harwood's voice stayed level. "You understand that carries serious consequences." "Yes, sir." Thunder crashed directly overhead. Lightning struck somewhere close. The ground shook. A supply shed's roof ripped loose and flew away into the darkness. "Everyone to the command tent," Harwood shouted. "Now!" MPs began herding people toward shelter. Jenkins grabbed Aiko's arm gently. She clutched her baby and followed. Zeke moved with them. The group ran through the storm. The command tent was already crowded. Men pressed together to escape the rain. Harwood pushed inside. He pointed at Zeke and Aiko. "You two, in here." They entered the tent. Briggs followed with Jenkins and 3 other MPs. The wind howled outside. Canvas walls bulged inward. Water leaked through a dozen seams. Harwood turned to face them. His uniform was soaked. His face showed exhaustion and something else. Maybe disgust. Maybe shame. "Someone get the medic in here," Harwood ordered. "Sir, In this storm, Briggs started. Now, Lieutenant. One of the MPs ran back into the rain. Minutes passed in tense silence. Aiko rocked her baby. The infant's breathing grew more labored. Zeke stood 3 paces away. He wanted to help, but could not move without permission. The medic arrived. He was the same one who had refused Aiko earlier. He looked annoyed at being dragged out in the storm. You wanted to see me, sir? Treat this child. Harwood pointed at Aiko's baby. Right now. Sir, I don't think... That wasn't a request. The medic's face reddened. He looked at Zeke, then at Aiko, then back at Harwood. We need to preserve supplies for... I said treat the child. Harwood's voice rose. Or I will have you up on charges for refusing a direct order. The medic worked slowly. He administered sulfa powder with reluctant hands. He checked the baby's temperature. He gave Aiko instructions in broken Japanese. His face showed resentment with every movement. Briggs watched from the corner. His jaw clenched. He had been building a case against Zeke for days. Now Captain Harwood was undermining everything. Sir, may I speak with you privately? Briggs asked. No, Lieutenant. Harwood did not look away from the baby. Whatever you have to say, you can say it here. This sets a dangerous precedent. If we start treating enemy civilians... Enemy civilians? Harwood turned suddenly. His eyes blazed. That's a sick infant, not an enemy. With respect, sir, Coleman still stole military property. He violated orders. He's been fraternizing with... He saved a child's life. A new voice spoke from the entrance. Everyone turned. A young white medic stepped inside. He was one of the junior staff, barely 20 years old. He looked terrified but determined. What are you doing here, Corporal Webb? Briggs demanded. I need to say something, sir. Webb's voice shook. About Coleman, about the medicine. You need to return to your station. Please, sir, let me speak. Harwood nodded. Go ahead, Corporal. Webb took a breath. I was there when the Japanese woman first came asking for medicine. I heard Medic Paulson refuse to treat her baby. He said enemy babies weren't worth our supplies. I should have said something then. I should have helped. But I was afraid. That's enough, Webb. Briggs stepped forward. You're out of line. No, sir, I'm not. Webb looked at Zeke. Coleman did what I should have done. He acted with compassion when the rest of us acted with hate. If he's guilty of anything, then I'm guilty too, for standing by and doing nothing. Silence filled the tent. Rain pounded the canvas roof. Wind shook the support poles. The baby made a soft sound. Aiko looked down and saw the infant's eyes open. The fever had not broken yet, but the immediate crisis was passing. Harwood walked to the tent entrance. He stood there for a long moment. His shoulders sagged. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 3 years of war. Lieutenant Briggs, release Coleman from confinement. Sir, I must protest. Your protest is noted and overruled. Harwood turned around. Coleman acted outside regulations, but he acted with honor. In this war, we've lost too much of that already. Briggs's face turned red. What about charges? There will be no charges. Harwood looked at Zeke. But you won't be restored to rank either. That's the compromise. You're free to return to duty, but you'll do it as a private. Yes, sir. Zeke kept his voice steady. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. Harwood moved toward the exit. I should have done this days ago, before it got this far. He left the tent. Briggs stared at Zeke for several seconds. Hatred burned in his eyes. Then he turned and followed Harwood into the storm. The other MPs filed out. Webb stopped beside Zeke. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. You spoke up when it mattered. Zeke extended his hand. That took courage. Webb shook it briefly. Then he left, too. Only Jenkins, Iko, and Zeke remained in the tent. The baby slept now. Its breathing had steadied. "The storm is easing," Jenkins said. "You should both get somewhere dry." Iko stood slowly. She bowed to Zeke, deeper than before, her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything. Take care of your baby." She walked to the exit. Jenkins held the flap open for her. She stepped into the rain. It fell lighter now. The worst of the storm had passed. Zeke stood alone in the empty tent. He had lost his stripes. He had gained nothing official. But something had shifted. Some small crack had appeared in the wall of hate and fear. It was not victory, but it was not defeat either. It was simply truth, finally spoken aloud. Morning light broke through scattered clouds. The storm had passed. Puddles covered the camp. Steam rose from wet canvas tents. Men emerged to assess the damage. Several tents had collapsed. Equipment lay scattered across the ground. Zeke walked toward him, the civilian area. His uniform still felt damp from the night before. He carried no rank insignia now, just a plain private. 3 years of combat service reduced to nothing, but he felt no bitterness, only relief that Iko and her baby had survived. He found her outside her tent. She sat on a wooden crate. The baby rested in her arms. The infant's color had returned. Its breathing was steady. Iko looked up as Zeke approached. "Your baby looks better." "Yes," Iko smiled. "Fever gone this morning. Medicine work." Other civilians watched from nearby tents. Some looked curious. Others looked afraid. The old man who had scolded Iko before stood near the entrance. He did not speak, but his expression had softened. "I wanted to check on you both." Zeke kept his distance. No need to cause more trouble. "Make sure you were all right." "We are all right because of you." Iko shifted the baby in her arms. "You lose rank because of us?" "Yes. I am sorry." "Don't be." Zeke looked at the infant. Some things matter more than stripes. A jeep rolled past. Captain Harwood sat in the passenger seat. He glanced at Zeke and Iko, but did not stop. The jeep continued toward the command area. Harwood's face showed the same exhaustion as the night before. Yuki emerged from the tent. She carried 2 bowls of rice. She handed one to Iko and kept the other for herself. She nodded slightly to Zeke. Not friendly, but not hostile either. "Officers are talking this morning." Yuki spoke in broken English. "They say war may end soon." "I heard the same rumor." Zeke wondered if it was true. The fighting had dragged on for so long. Every day brought promises that never arrived. "What happened to us when war ended?" Iko looked worried. "Where we go?" "I don't know." Zeke had no answers for her. "But you'll be safe. The fighting will stop." A courier jeep pulled into the camp. It stopped near the command tent. An officer jumped out carrying a canvas bag. He ran inside quickly. Within minutes, other officers began gathering. "Something is happening," Yuki said quietly. They watched soldiers move with new urgency. Orders were shouted across the camp. Men formed into lines. Equipment was inspected. The mood had shifted. Everyone felt it. A loudspeaker crackled to life. Static filled the air. Then a voice spoke clearly. "All personnel report to staging areas for special announcement. Repeat, all personnel report to staging areas." Zeke looked at Iko one more time. "I have to go." "Yes." She bowed her head. "Thank you again." He walked away. Behind him he heard the baby coo softly. The sound carried hope he had not felt in years. The mess area filled with soldiers. Black troops stood in one section, white troops in another. Even now segregation held firm. Men talked in low voices. Speculation ran through the crowd. Some thought new orders were coming. Others believed the war was finally ending. Zeke found Lewis and Turner. They stood near the back. Both men looked relieved to see him. "You're free?" Lewis gripped Zeke's shoulder. "We heard what happened last night. Free, but demoted." Zeke touched his collar where his stripes had been. "Back to private. Better than the stockade." Turner scanned the crowd. "Everyone's saying big news is coming." Captain Harwood stepped onto a wooden platform. Lieutenant Briggs stood beside him. Briggs would not look at the black soldiers. His jaw stayed clenched. Defeat showed in his posture. "Listen up!" Harwood raised his voice. "I have an important announcement." The crowd fell silent. Even the distant sound of trucks faded. Every man focused on Harwood. "Official word came through this morning. Japan has surrendered. The war is over." Silence held for 3 seconds. Then cheers erupted. Men threw their caps in the air. They grabbed each other and shouted. Years of tension released in one collective roar. Zeke stood still. He felt nothing at first. Then slowly relief washed over him. No more campaigns. No more watching friends die. No more carrying bodies through mud and fire. "Quiet down." Harwood waited for silence. "This means major changes. All POW camps will begin processing civilians for repatriation. All troops will receive new orders within 48 hours. Some of you will ship home immediately. Others will remain for occupation duty." The cheering resumed. Men slapped each other's backs. Some cried. Others just stared at the sky. The weight of survival finally hit them. "One more thing." Harwood's voice cut through the noise. "All pending disciplinary actions are suspended pending review. We're starting fresh." Briggs turned sharply to look at Harwood. The captain ignored him. He stepped down from the platform and walked away. Briggs followed several paces behind. His face burned red with anger. "Did you hear that?" Lewis grabbed Zeke's arm. "All disciplinary action suspended. That means you're in the clear." "Doesn't bring back my stripes." "Who cares about stripes?" Turner grinned. "We're going home, Zeke. We survived." Around them, black soldiers began celebrating. Years of carrying double burdens fell away. They had fought for a country that did not treat them equally. They had proven their worth in blood and sacrifice. Now they would go home. But Zeke's thoughts turned to Aiko. The war was over. That meant separation. She would be sent to a relocation center. He would be sent somewhere for demobilization. Their paths would never cross again. "You all right?" Lewis studied Zeke's face. "You don't look happy." "I'm fine." Zeke forced a smile. "Just taking it all in." A mess worker began distributing extra rations. Real meat for the first time in weeks. Fresh bread, even coffee. Celebration supplies saved for this moment. Men lined up eagerly. Zeke walked to the edge of the mess area. He looked toward the civilian tents. Smoke rose from their cooking fires. They had heard the news, too. Their war was also over. But what came next for them? "We have 48 hours, Turner said beside him. "Then everything changes." "Yes," Zeke agreed. "Everything changes." Afternoon brought paperwork. Officers set up tables near the command tent. They processed soldiers alphabetically. Names were checked against rosters. New orders were prepared. The machinery of demobilization had begun. Zeke stood in line with other soldiers whose last names started with C. The line moved slowly. Men ahead of him received their assignments. Some cheered. Others looked disappointed. "Next," a clerk waved Zeke forward. Zeke stepped up to the table. The clerk checked his name against a list. He stamped several forms. Then he handed Zeke a manila envelope. "Private Coleman, you're assigned to Kadena for outbound processing. Transport leaves tomorrow at 0600. "Tomorrow?" "Yes. War's over. Everyone ships out fast now." The clerk was already looking past Zeke. Next. Zeke walked away, holding the envelope. Tomorrow. Less than 24 hours. He had expected more time to process everything, more time to say goodbye. He walked toward the fence line that separated the military area from the civilian section. Aiko stood on the other side. She held her baby. She looked at him with sad eyes. You leave soon? Tomorrow morning. Zeke stopped at the fence. What about you? They say we go to relocation center. Maybe 3 days. Maybe 1 week. Aiko adjusted the cloth around her baby. We not go back to village. Village destroyed in fighting. I'm sorry. Many things destroyed. She looked at the distant hills. But some things survive. They stood in silence. The fence between them felt symbolic. 2 people from enemy nations. 2 people who had found humanity during inhumanity. Now the machinery of war's end would pull them apart. Your baby will grow strong. Zeke smiled at the infant. You're a good mother. You would be good father. Aiko's voice cracked slightly. Someday you have children. You teach them kindness. Maybe. Not maybe. Yes. Aiko looked directly at him. You teach them that people are people, not enemies, not monsters, just people. A truck horn sounded from the motor pool. Soldiers shouted orders. Equipment clanged as it was loaded. The whole camp buzzed with new energy. Everyone rushed toward whatever came next. I should go. Aiko bowed slightly. I thank you one more time. For everything. Take care of yourself, Aiko. You also, Zeke. She turned and walked back toward her tent. The baby looked over her shoulder at Zeke. One tiny hand reached out. Then they disappeared between the canvas structures. Zeke stood at the fence for several minutes. He memorized the scene. The way sunlight broke through clouds. The sound of voices mixing Japanese and English. The smell of cooking fires. All of it would be gone tomorrow. He walked back to his barracks. Lewis and Turner were packing their belongings. Every soldier owned so little. A few changes of clothes, letters from home, small trinkets collected during campaigns, everything fit in one duffel bag. You got your orders? Lewis asked. Kadena, tomorrow morning. Same here? Turner folded a shirt carefully. We'll ship out together. That's good. Zeke sat on his cot. That's real good. Outside, the sun began its descent. One more night in Okinawa. One more night carrying the memories of everything that had happened here. Then home. Whatever that meant now. Evening brought final preparations. The processing area filled with activity. Officers handed out relocation assignments. Civilians formed into groups based on their destinations. Japanese families clustered together. Fear and uncertainty showed on every face. Aiko stood with her group. 20 civilians total. They would travel together to a relocation center near Naha. The old man was with them. So was Yuki. They all carried small bundles of belongings. Captain Harwood walked through the area. He checked lists and gave orders to MPs. He stopped when he saw Aiko's group. This group leaves at 0800 tomorrow. He spoke slowly, so the interpreter could translate. You'll be transported by truck. The center will provide food and shelter until permanent arrangements are made. The interpreter repeated everything in Japanese. Several civilians asked questions. Harwood answered patiently. He looked tired, but his voice remained kind. Something had changed in him, too. Lieutenant Briggs appeared from the command tent. He saw Harwood with the civilians. His face twisted with disgust. He walked over quickly. Sir, I need you to sign these discharge papers. Later, Lieutenant. These are priority, sir. Harwood turned to face Briggs. I said later. They stared at each other. Briggs backed down first. He walked away holding his clipboard. His shoulders were tight with anger. Everything he had tried to build against Zeke had collapsed. Now the war's end had made it all irrelevant. Military trucks began lining up near the staging area. Drivers checked engines, MPs loaded supplies. Everything moved with practiced efficiency. The army knew how to break down a camp. It had done this hundreds of times across the Pacific. Zeke watched from a distance. He had finished packing an hour ago. His duffel bag sat beside his cot. Everything he owned in the world fit in that one canvas sack. 3 years of war reduced to 40 pounds of belongings. He saw Aiko standing with her group. She looked small and lost. The baby slept against her chest. Around her, other civilians talked nervously. They faced an uncertain future. No homes to return to. No certainty about what came next. Zeke made a decision. He walked toward the civilian area. An MP saw him coming. "Civilians are restricted right now, Private." "I know. I just need 1 minute." The MP considered. Then he nodded. 1 minute. That's it. Zeke approached Aiko's group. The old man saw him first. He stepped forward as if to block Zeke's path. Then he stopped. He looked at Zeke for a long moment. Finally, he bowed slightly and stepped aside. Aiko turned. Her eyes widened when she saw Zeke. "I thought you already leave." "Not until morning." Zeke glanced at her baby. "I wanted to see you one more time." "I am glad." Aiko's voice barely rose above a whisper. "I think maybe I not see you again." "Me too." They stood awkwardly. So many things needed saying. So few words could express them. The fence was gone now, but invisible barriers remained. Language, culture, history, all of it created distance that kindness alone could not fully bridge. "You be safe?" Aiko asked. "Yes, I'll be safe." Zeke looked at the trucks being loaded. "You be safe too?" "Yes," the MP called out. "Time's up, Private." Zeke nodded. He looked at Aiko one more time. "Thank you for trusting me, even when you were afraid. Thank you for seeing me, when everyone else just see enemy." He turned to leave. Her voice stopped him. "Zeke?" He looked back. "You are good man. Do not forget that." "I won't." His throat felt tight. "Take care of your baby." He walked away. Behind him he heard Aiko speaking softly to her infant in Japanese. The words were gentle, comforting, the kind of words mothers everywhere spoke to their children. Darkness fell slowly. Lights came on across the camp. Zeke returned to his barracks. Tomorrow would come too quickly. Dawn arrived gray and cool. Zeke woke before the bugle call. He dressed in the darkness. Lewis and Turner were already moving around, all 3 men packed in silence. Words felt unnecessary. The bugle sounded. Men poured from tents across the camp. Orders were shouted. Engines started. The carefully organized chaos of military departure began. Zeke shouldered his duffel bag. He walked with Lewis and Turner toward the staging lot. Trucks lined up in neat rows. Soldiers climbed aboard alphabetically. Officers checked names against rosters. Near the civilian area, different trucks waited. Aiko's group was already gathering. MPs herded them toward the vehicles. Some civilians moved slowly. Others rushed as if eager to leave this place behind. Zeke saw Aiko in the line. She held her baby close. Yuki walked beside her. The old man followed several paces back. They moved toward a truck painted olive green. Its canvas cover flapped in the morning breeze. "Coleman," a sergeant called his name. "Get moving. Your truck leaves in 5 minutes." Zeke started toward his assigned vehicle. Then he stopped. He set down his duffel bag. Lewis grabbed his arm. "What are you doing?" "Something I need to do." Zeke pulled free. "I'll be right back." He walked quickly toward the civilian trucks. MPs saw him coming but did not stop him. Perhaps they sensed this moment was important. Perhaps they simply did not care anymore. The war was over. Old rules felt less rigid. Aiko was about to climb into the truck. An MP was helping her up. Zeke called her name. Aiko! She turned. Her face showed surprise. She handed her baby to Yuki and climbed back down. She walked to meet Zeke. They stopped 3 feet apart. Proper distance, nothing that could be called improper. I had to say goodbye properly. Zeke's voice was steady. Not from a distance. Yes. Aiko bowed deeply. I understand. I hope you find a good life. You and your baby. You deserve happiness. You also deserve this. Aiko straightened. When you go home, I hope people see you right. See your goodness. They probably won't. Zeke allowed a small smile. But that's all right. I know who I am now. Aiko reached out hesitantly. Zeke extended his hand. She took it briefly. Her grip was firm. Then she let go and bowed again. In my country, we were told you were dangerous. Told black soldiers were beasts who hurt women and children. Aiko's English came clearer than ever before. But you were only one who saw me as human, only one who cared if my baby lived. That's all I ever wanted anyone to see in me. Zeke felt emotions rising. Just a man trying to do right. The baby began to cry. Yuki held the infant out toward Aiko. Aiko hesitated. Then she did something unexpected. She took the baby and held it toward Zeke. You hold? Zeke looked at the tiny face. The very act that had terrified Aiko weeks ago now offered as a gesture of complete trust. He reached out carefully. Aiko placed the infant in his arms. The baby stopped crying. It looked up at Zeke with dark eyes. One small hand reached up and grabbed his finger. The grip was surprisingly strong. Your baby is beautiful. Zeke felt his throat tighten. You did good, Aiko. Real good. Around them, soldiers and civilians watched in silence. Black soldiers, white soldiers, Japanese civilians. Everyone saw this moment. A black American private holding a Japanese baby. The woman who had once screamed in terror now trusted him completely. A horn sounded. The truck engines revved. Time was up. Zeke handed the baby back to Aiko. She cradled the infant against her chest. Tears ran down her face, but she smiled through them. Goodbye, Zeke. Goodbye, Aiko. She climbed into the truck. Yuki helped her settle on the bench. Other civilians made room. The old man looked at Zeke and nodded once. Respect finally given. The trucks began to move. Zeke climbed into his assigned truck. Lewis and Turner had saved him a spot near the back. The bench was hard wood. The canvas cover blocked most of the light. 20 men packed together in the dim space. You all right? Lewis asked quietly. Yeah. Zeke stared at his hands. He could still feel the baby's grip. I'm all right. The truck lurched forward. Gears ground. The engine roared. They rolled out of the camp slowly. Zeke looked through the back opening. The camp grew smaller. Canvas tents faded into the distance. Smoke from cooking fires rose into the morning sky. Other trucks followed behind them. The convoy formed a long line. Dust rose from the tires. It hung in the air and obscured everything. Hard to believe it's over, Turner said. 3 years of fighting, then suddenly it just ends. Nothing sudden about it. Lewis leaned back against the canvas. We earned every day of peace, paid for it in blood. Think they'll remember that back home? Another soldier spoke up. Think they'll care what we did? Nobody answered. They all knew the truth. Black soldiers had fought in every theater. They had died at the same rate as white soldiers. They had earned medals and commendations. But segregation would still meet them at the docks. Jim Crow laws would still apply in most states. They would return as heroes and be treated as less than citizens. At least we know, Zeke said. We know what we did, what we survived. Nobody can take that from us. That's right, Lewis nodded. We carry it with us. That has to be enough. The truck turned onto a main road. The ride smoothed out slightly. Men adjusted their positions. Some tried to sleep. Others stared at the canvas walls, each man alone with his thoughts. Zeke closed his eyes. He saw Aiko's face. He saw her baby's hand reaching up. He saw the moment she had screamed in terror, and the moment she had placed her child in his arms. The distance between those two moments contained the whole story of war. Fear and propaganda dissolved by simple humanity. No medals would commemorate it. No history books would record it. But it had happened. That truth could not be erased. Hours passed. The truck stopped once for a break. Men climbed out and stretched. They smoked cigarettes and drank from canteens. The landscape around them showed war's damage. Burned buildings, cratered roads, trees stripped of leaves. Everything bore scars. 10 minutes, a sergeant called. Then we roll again. They climbed back into the truck. The convoy resumed. The sun climbed higher. Heat built inside the canvas cover. Sweat dripped down faces. Nobody complained. They had endured worse. Much worse. How much further to Kadena? Someone asked. Another 3 hours, maybe. Turner checked his watch. We'll get there by afternoon. Then what? Then we wait. Lewis shrugged. Wait for ships, wait for orders, wait to find out where they send us next. Always waiting, another soldier muttered. That's the army for you. Laughter rippled through the truck. Tired laughter, but genuine. They had survived. That was enough for now. The future could wait. Zeke opened his eyes. Through gaps in the canvas, he saw blue sky. Clouds drifted past. Birds flew overhead. Life continued. The world turned. And somewhere in another truck, Aiko held her baby and hoped for better days. That hope connected them. Distance could not break it. Different languages could not obscure it. It was the hope that someday people would see each other clearly, without hate, without fear. Just human beings sharing one small planet. Night fell as they traveled. The convoy had slowed due to damaged roads. Detours added hours. Men dozed fitfully. The truck's movement rocked them gently. Occasional bumps jolted everyone awake. Zeke could not sleep. His mind raced through memories. Campaigns fought, friends lost. Small moments of unexpected kindness in the midst of cruelty. Aiko was just one story among thousands. But her story had changed something in him. You thinking about home? Lewis asked. He was awake too. Thinking about everything. Zeke shifted position. Wondering what it all meant. It meant we survived. Lewis pulled out a letter from his pocket. My wife wrote that our son took his first steps. He's walking now. I missed it, but I'll be there for the rest. That's good, Lewis. Real good. What about you? You got someone waiting? My mother, a few cousins. Zeke thought about the small house in Alabama. No one special, though. You'll find someone. Turner joined the conversation. Good man like you. Someone will see that. Maybe. Zeke was not certain. But if they don't, I'll still know what I did here. That has to count for something. It counts for everything. Lewis folded his letter carefully. We fought 2 wars, one against the enemy, one against the hate in our own ranks. We won both. A radio crackled somewhere in the convoy. Static-filled voices carried news. Japan's formal surrender would happen in days. American ships already filled Tokyo Bay. The occupation was beginning. History was being written in real time. Think they'll write about us? Turner asked. The colored troops? Probably not. Lewis sounded tired. But we'll remember. We'll tell our children. The truth will survive even if the history books forget. The truck hit a large pothole. Men cursed and grabbed for support. Equipment rattled. The driver shouted an apology that nobody heard clearly. Then the ride smoothed out again. Hours blurred together. Darkness outside was complete. No moon, no stars. Just blackness beyond the canvas. Zeke thought about segregation. About returning to a country that did not fully accept him. About wearing a uniform that had never truly fit. But he also thought about dignity. About choosing humanity when hate was easier. About one woman's scream that had led to understanding instead of more division. No amount of racism could take that away. No law could diminish it. He had proven something to himself. That was worth more than any medal. "I think I see lights ahead," someone said near the front. Men stirred. They peered through gaps in the canvas. Dim lights appeared in the distance. The Cadena airfield complex. They were almost there. "Final stop coming up," the driver called back. "Get your gear ready." Duffel bags were pulled from beneath benches. Men checked their belongings, prepared themselves mentally for the next phase. Everything was temporary in the military. Every ending led to a new beginning. The convoy pulled through gates. MPs checked paperwork, then waved them through. The trucks rolled into a staging area. Hundreds of soldiers already filled the space. Tents stretched in every direction. This was the collection point, where everyone gathered before the long journey home. "Everybody out!" A sergeant appeared at the back of the truck. "Form up by unit." They climbed down stiffly. Legs had cramped during the long ride. Backs ached. But they moved with practiced efficiency. Years of military training made certain actions automatic. Zeke stood with Lewis and Turner. Around them, black soldiers formed ranks. White soldiers formed different ranks. Even here, even at the very end, segregation held firm. "Private Coleman," an officer called his name. Zeke stepped forward. "Yes, sir?" "You're billeted in Tent 16, Row 4. Report there now." "Yes, sir." He found his tent. Canvas sagged in the middle. Cots lined both walls. Half were already occupied. Men unpacked or lay staring at the ceiling. Zeke found an empty cot and set down his duffel bag. This was where he would wait. Days, probably, maybe weeks, until a ship had space, until orders came through, until the machinery of demobilization processed him completely. He lay back on the cot. Springs creaked. The canvas overhead showed dark stains from old rain leaks. But it was shelter. It was safety. The war was over. Tomorrow would bring more waiting. But tonight he could rest. Tonight he could let his guard down slightly. The fighting had ended. Survival was certain. He closed his eyes. Sleep came slowly, but eventually it came. Morning arrived with familiar sounds. Bugles, shouted orders, boots on gravel. Zeke woke and dressed automatically. Another day in uniform. But this one felt different. Lighter, somehow. Freer. He walked to the processing tent. His name was called. He stepped forward. A tired clerk stamped papers and handed him a slip. "Your ship leaves in 72 hours. Transport to dock is day after tomorrow. Keep this slip. Don't lose it." "Yes, sir." Zeke took the paper. It represented everything. Home. The end of service. A new beginning. He walked away from the tent. The morning sun was bright. Heat was already building. Around him, thousands of soldiers moved through their routines. Some headed to mess halls. Others reported for work details. Everyone waited for their turn to board ships. Aircraft roared overhead. Big transport planes carrying supplies. They landed and took off continuously. The sound had become background noise. Nobody looked up anymore. Zeke found a spot near the airfield fence. He sat on the ground and watched planes taxi. Lewis and Turner found him there. "Got your ship date?" Turner asked. 3 days. "Same." Lewis sat down beside him. "We'll probably be on the same vessel." That would be good. Zeke appreciated the thought of familiar faces during the long journey. Real good. They sat in silence. The war was over. They had survived when so many had not. Guilt and relief mixed together. Why them? Why had they been spared when better men had fallen? You think we did enough? Turner voiced the question all of them felt. Think we made a difference? We did our part. Lewis picked up a pebble and tossed it. Can't ask more than that. Can't we? Zeke thought about Aiko, about her baby, about the small act of kindness that had nearly destroyed him. Maybe we can always do more. Maybe. Turner looked at Zeke. But you can't save everyone. You can only save the ones in front of you. I saved one. Zeke's voice was quiet. That's something. That's everything, Lewis said. One life saved is everything to that person. You gave that baby a chance. You gave that mother hope. Don't diminish it. A plane lifted off. It climbed steeply and banked west, heading toward Japan, probably. Or maybe back toward the States, home. The word carried so much weight, so much hope and fear mixed together. What will you do when you get home? Turner asked both of them. Find work. Lewis shrugged. Raise my son. Try to forget some things and remember others. You, Zeke? Same. Work, family, life. Zeke looked at the sky. Try to hold on to what I learned here. Which is? That people are people. Zeke chose his words carefully. That propaganda and hate can be broken by simple humanity. That one person's courage to trust can change everything. Think that lesson will matter back home? Turner's voice carried doubt. Think anyone will care? They should. Zeke stood slowly. But even if they don't, I'll care. I'll remember. That has to be enough. They walked back toward their tents. The day stretched ahead. More waiting, more processing, more standing in lines. But the end was in sight now. 3 days. 72 hours. Then a ship. Then an ocean. Then home. Zeke spent the afternoon writing letters. To his mother, to cousins, short notes telling them he was safe, that he would be home soon. He did not mention Aiko. Some stories were too complex for letters. Some truths needed to be spoken face to face. Evening brought cooler air. Men gathered outside tents. They talked about plans and dreams, about jobs and family, about putting the war behind them. But Zeke knew the war would never be fully behind them. It would live in memories and nightmares, in moments of unexpected sound that made them flinch, in silences that felt too heavy. He thought about Aiko somewhere in a relocation center. He hoped she was safe. He hoped her baby was thriving. He hoped someday she would tell her child about the Black American soldier who had helped them, about the man who proved that propaganda was lies. That kindness could cross any divide. Night fell completely. Stars appeared overhead, the same stars that had watched 3 years of war, the same stars that would watch whatever came next. Zeke lay on his cot and looked up through a gap in the canvas. Tomorrow the sun would rise. The day after that he would board a truck, then a ship, then home. He had no stripes, he had no medals. He had no official recognition of what he had done or survived, but he had something more valuable. He had proof that choosing humanity over hate was possible, even when the cost was high, even when the outcome was uncertain. He had stood in the face of injustice and chosen compassion. That truth lived in him now, unshakable, permanent. No one could take it away. He closed his eyes. Sleep came easier tonight. Dreams came too. Not nightmares of combat, but quiet dreams of a baby's hand reaching up, of a mother's bow of gratitude, of a moment when two people from opposite sides of history found common ground. When he woke 3 days from now, He would walk toward his ship with his head high, no stripes on his collar, but dignity in his heart, no medals on his chest, but honor in his soul. He was going home, not as a conquering hero, but as a man who had learned the hardest lesson war teaches, that in a world poisoned by hate and fear, the smallest act of humanity becomes revolutionary. That was enough. That was everything. That was the victory that mattered most, the invisible kind, the one that survives long after uniforms are folded and wars are forgotten.